Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Happy Memorial Day to you and your family, and today we're going to be doing a little talk about IPOs. So, earlier in the year, I bought this book called The Lifecycle Trade. It's a great book on investing and trading IPOs, which are recent initial public offerings, new stocks to the market, and here's my kind of interpretation of what I took away from that book. So what we're looking at here is the Renaissance IPO ETF. It's kind of the barometer for the IPO market. It's a market cap weighted ETF, meaning that each individual component is weighted based off its market cap, and it's not equally weighted, meaning that each individual component has a equal amount of weighting within the ETF. So just a quick look at this chart. You can see it's been in a pretty major downtrend since the IPO market really peaked back in October of 21. And it's been a steady decline. But over the past, we'll say we placed our anchor back in May of last year. So for over the last year, we've been in this basing pattern, and we're starting to see the right side of the base kind of forming here with a upward sloping 20-week moving average. And this is also seen with the relative strength index, how we've been getting these trend lines that are moving higher and causing some bullish divergence for us to be looking upon. So what I kind of use this ETF for is just to see, what's the trend of the general market. This is the wind behind the IPO market, and if the ticker IPO is going up, then most of your IPO stocks are going to be going up as well. So taking a look at that, how do I kind of sort, and what's my criteria for getting the IPO stocks that I trade? And that's just me going to the IPO ETF and looking at the holdings. So what I do is I'll just go through here. I'll import all of these 87 stocks into a watch list, and then I'll sort them based on my kind of discretionary criteria, and how I do that is a little bit more subjective, and we'll get into that in a little bit. So what we're seeing in this recent development is, although it's still definitely a downtrend, we are forming this stage one base, and I think if we could break over this $30 level, we may get a good run either to this previous high VWAP or to the bottom of this bear flag here. So some IPOs that I currently own. These are kind of just in order of the market value. So Bentley Systems, I bought in on the breakout above this level. So you can see right around this $41 level I bought in, and then we had a pretty bad reversal right back to the 20-week, which held, thankfully, and I didn't get stopped out, and it's been moving up since. Also looking at GFL Environmental, this one was a much better buy. You can see I bought on this breakout from the all-time high VWAP, which was on big volume, and it's been going higher since. And I use a trailing stop of the 20-week moving average until I get some substantial profits locked in. So, I didn't really see this one get high enough to where I wanted to lock in any profits, so we're just using the 20-week as a trailing. On holdings, this was a huge power earnings gap that I bought, and then we almost got stopped out. I had it right at this. We take it down to the daily chart. I had my stop right in here at this low, this 25.50 level. I didn't want to see that gap come back, and even though the fill's down here, I really wanted to see the strength hold. And after the last earnings report, the strength was not there. So now we're going to see if we can hold this base in here and keep me from getting stopped out. Next up is new holdings. You can see I wanted to wait till I got some volume confirmation, and I really should have waited one more if I wanted that, but I felt that there was a lot of momentum behind this one just from the fact that it was up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks, and I bought on 1, 2, 3, 4. I bought on the 5th week, and all I was doing was buying this breakout from the IPO VWAP and also the previous high VWAP. So I felt that, we were getting this huge relative strength divergence. We were in the sideways chop, and the relative strength was moving higher, and it was also a clear, inverse head and shoulders that looked like this thing wanted to go. So that's why I bought in. Next up, we have Global E Online. I don't know if you're kind of noticing this, but there's been a clear pattern of sideways action since May of last year in a lot of these IPOs. And they came back down in November, and then a lot of them have been moving higher and breaking out of these short-term bases, and then I'm going to use these the IPO VWAP as kind of the long-term breakout here. So This one, again, not a whole lot of volume. When I have these stocks that don't break out on huge volume, I definitely weight the position size much lower than I would if there was a huge breakout. So like say, this is a $20,000 account for me. I'd say my largest position I would let it go up to would be about $4,000 or $5,000. So when we're just getting these initial breakouts, this is only a $500 position, and I'm looking for further stages to build out once we get above these more crucial VWAPs, and let me know that overhead supply has been worked off. This is a new one that I just bought this week. This is Monday.com. Again, you get this huge relative strength divergence. Same thing we've been seeing in all the other ones. We bottomed in summer of last year. I trended a little bit lower in the fall, but overall this is a stage one base, and then we get a little run up, we get a pullback, and I look to buy here. So I was using this shorter term VWAP that's anchored off the February high as kind of just a cheat to get in, and we also had huge volume, and the highest volume ever to a continued high volume on the breakout. So this one just got started, and like I said, I got in this one this week. Roblox hasn't been the best. It looked like it was going to be a good breakout here. We got high volume, and then when I bought the open in the next week, we pulled back to the 20-week, and then the latest earnings gap did not help us out, but we've been holding this kind of breakout trend line as well as the 20-week moving average. Also, the RSI trend line is intact. So if this one rolls over, I'll get out around the $30 level. And then last up, we have Liado. So this is another newer one. We got a huge breakout above a lot of key indicators. We broke out above the IPO VWAP. We broke out above we'll call it the most recent high VWAP, and then we broke out of the lower term high here. We had a big earnings gap on high volume, and that looked like a good reason for me to get involved. Right around break even on this one at the moment, maybe down 3 or 4%, but this 20-week moving average is moving higher, and that's what we want to see is price above that. So kind of going back to these other IPOs, how do I really, screen for them? I kind of just look at, the base overall. So Palantir was one I missed. This one was just so far, this base that formed here after our most recent breakout was just so far below the IPO VWAP. And that just means there's a lot of overhead supply, and I don't really want to be trading issues that have these overhead supplies. I want to look for the stocks that are going to be extremely volatile to the upside once they break out, because everyone is in the money, and there's just all these people that are dying to get into these stocks. And when you're trading stocks that have lots of overhead supply, that means there's a lot of forced sellers when they get to a certain point where they feel they're break even, or maybe they bought even back at this $13 level and it runs up to 18. That's a substantial move higher, and they just want to get out to make sure that they don't get trapped like they did after this most recent break. So that's Palantir. Next up is one that looked like it was going to be all right, but it broke down on the most recent earnings, was Snowflake. So again, this one bottomed back in May, June of last year. It actually traded a little bit higher than most of the other ones did, and we didn't get that undercut of the May low. And then we've just been trading sideways since. Again, this one came right back down to the 20-week. But if we could get a move above this, we'll call it $200 level, that would be very, very bullish for price. Hood is another one that's been absolutely crushed since its IPO, and that's why I have this line drawn here, and maybe it'll get a sympathy bid along with Palantir, and not a sympathy bid, but maybe it'll have a similar breakout and kind of mirror that move that we saw in Palantir, since it is so far below this IPO and the previous high, the all-time high VWAP. There's just a lot of overhead supply, and like I said, I don't really want to be trading those issues. Next up, looking at Airbnb, this is one I was feeling really good about after this huge earnings gap back in February, and it pushed price right below here, and this is the exact base I wanted to form. It just, on the most recent earnings, it got crushed down on huge volume, which is not what you want to see. So now this one is just going to stay towards the bottom of the watch list, and we're going to see what can happen here. And then Coin is another one I feel extremely bullish about. You can see the The IPO VWAP is a little bit higher than the previous high VWAP, but we are kind of seeing a confluence of resistance. We're seeing a confluence of downsloping trend lines, and we're seeing a confluence of these VWAPs starting to smooth out and go sideways, along with subsiding of volume. So that's what we want to see through this $74 level is, maybe some sideways chop, 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 and then we get a huge volume spike on one of the next earnings reports, and that's what's going to propel me into this stock. And then one that I've been stopped out recently in was IoT. This was a big, IAI, Internet of Things stock, and I thought when we had this huge breakout on good volume back in April that this thing would continue higher, but immediately reversed lower, and I was stopped out on this move. We are still kind of building this next base here, and it looks a little bit more substantial than our last one was. This was only a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 6-week base, and even though we did get this false breakout, we are still holding above the 20-week, above the IPO VWAP, and there's also this confluence of previous resistance turn support at this 1665 level. So any move above 22, I'm going to look to get involved. So that's kind of how I've been trading these IPO stocks. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. Again, I highly recommend everybody read this book, The Lifecycle Trade, and thanks for watching.